you. Yeah, I'm gonna move this behind me. I don't want you missing any of this like hot little smoke show going on. Distracting you all. Isn't it? Let's hear it for Sam again. Isn't Sam great? Yes, amazing. I just recently, by the way, I too am a former WNBA star. Don't believe me? Okay. I just recently met Sam, and you know, I don't want to meet any more new people. Sorry, I'm done. Okay, I'm done. That's because the more people that I meet, the less interesting I know I am. It's true. I'm not interesting, you guys. I'm uninterested. I was born and raised right here in West Rogers Park, average, and my parents had 3 kids, and we were raised in a 3-bedroom ranch, average, you know. I got a Bachelor of Communications at NIU in DeKalb, average. And then I grew up and I married a blue collar guy named Mark, average. And then we had 3 kids and we moved in a 3-bedroom ranch, average, in Wheeling. Below average. Fucking Wheeling, all right, yeah. And we don't really get out to many interesting places, I mean, every once in a while, we venture out to Schaumburg, but then I got a job, an entry-level job at a growing national PR firm, right? And I stayed there for 27 years. I worked my ass off, right? And the owners, they didn't know what to do with me, so they made me president. Yeah. Me, average little Deb, president. And in this role, I get to go to a lot of really cool places and with very cultured, interesting people where I don't fit in. I recently got back from Paris. Yeah. I mean, the company paid for it, but I did just get back from Paris. And, it was a PR conference attended by all of these very interesting cultured people, who had traveled the world. And they couldn't believe that it was my first time there, at age 60 or anywhere else for that matter. And they were talking about, they know everything about everything. And they were talking about all these things. And I had to pretend like I knew something. And I was trying to keep up with them. They were like, the Palace de Versailles. And I went, oh, yeah, of course. The Louvre Museum. Wheeling. There's no place like Wheeling. I just wanted to get back home. So I did try to go to some of those places, to try to make myself a little more interesting. But I just didn't absorb any new information. I didn't absorb any, I don't, except a lot of bread and cheese, So I didn't come back from Paris any more interesting, just a little more bloated and constipated. I'm allowed to say that, I don't know. Still. Oh my gosh. Okay. Don't look. You're looking there now, aren't you? Please don't. Actually, I wanted to take off this horrible jacket. My friend told me not to get it. It's from Talbot's. If you don't know what Talbot's is, it's a store for short people, women in their 60s. I don't know. Just don't shop there. Now I'm all exposed. Okay. All right. Gotta get over that. Okay, so what is it? It is it's Sunday night, right? So I have been dreading Monday morning since last Tuesday. And that is because in my role as president, I'm also I oversee all the employees, the Gen Z employees. And Monday mornings at an office full of Gen Zs are torture. Because they just all they talk about all day long is their weekend. They just gotta know what'd you do on your weekend? How was your weekend? How's your weekend? What you doing? Do anything interesting on your weekend? And they're especially interested in my weekend for whatever reason. They badger me about why, and I don't. I'm not interesting. I don't do anything on my week. I do shit on my weekend. So I came up with a strategy for this. All right, I come in the office on Monday mornings and I pretend that I'm late for a meeting, a Zoom meeting. And I'm just like, bye, you guys, okay, yeah, I'll tell you about my weekend later, okay? And I run into my office and I go in there, and by the way, it's all glass. You can see everything. And I open my laptop and I'm like, and then I think I can go out there finally, when it's safe. When they're done with this, how was your weekend phase, and, but sometimes it lasts all day, right? So I sit in my office the entire day, do nothing but having fake Zoom meetings. And it's not very productive, I'll tell you that. But eventually I do go back out there, when I think it's safe. And the other thing about Gen Zs is they're oversharers. Okay? They like to tell you everything that's going on in that head. And it's got to come out like all the time. And not just the stuff that's in their waking hours, right? They like to tell you what goes on when they sleep. They tell me their dreams. Okay, and I'm sorry, folks, but I find nothing less interesting and more irritating than people telling me about their dreams. Especially these Gen Zs, it's like, oh my God, I woke up. Oh my God, do you have a minute? Do you have a minute to tell you about this dream? I walked into my dining room and Neil Diamond was sitting there, and then my brother was there too, and then Neil Diamond kissed my brother, or I was flying over a church. I was like flying. I don't know. And then I went into a brainstorm meeting for a client. I was naked. I wasn't wearing anything. So anyway, I came up with a strategy for this too. I decided to embrace this, and I told them that I studied dream interpretation in college. I could tell them what their dreams mean, right? So now I do this, and I tell them what their dreams mean, depending on what I want to do with them, because I'm in charge of hiring and firing. So, for example, Kayla. She's a little bit of a problem employee, and Kayla has a lot of dreams, all right? And like, Deb, do you have a minute? I heard you know how to tell what dreams mean. Can you tell me what this means? Okay, so there was this shiny black Mercedes, and I'm in the parking lot, and it's really shiny, and it's at the other end of the parking lot, and it's my Mercedes, but it's like not my Mercedes, but it's kind of my Mercedes. Anyway, and then I'm trying to get to it, but my legs, they won't move. They're just so heavy, like I can't move my legs. I said, oh, Kayla, I know exactly what that means. That black Mercedes is a wonderful new job opportunity. And your heavy legs, that represents your fears, So you just gotta let go of your fears and go for it, girl. Come on, go. She's like, really? Yeah, so Kayla turned in her resignation. And again, thank you. It's a good thing. And then it also works the other way. There's this guy named Maverick. You guys, that's a Gen Z name, Maverick. Anyway, Maverick, and I actually like Maverick. He's a good employee, and he put in his 2-week notice already, right? And I want Maverick to stay. And he tells me about his dream, and he says, hey, I heard you interpret dreams. Is this true? I'm like, oh, absolutely, Maverick. And he says, yeah, I had this dream. Can you tell me what it means? I was in a grassy field, and there was all these black snakes around me. They were just like surrounding me, these black snakes. Oh, Maverick, I got some bad news for you, buddy. those black snakes, those represent the enemy, the unknown, right? So you gotta stick with the known, where people know you and love you. I was like, really? I'm like, yeah. So Maverick rescinded his resignation. A few minutes later, it was a good day. And I started to embrace this role of dream interpreter. They all started calling me. As a matter of fact, they started calling me Joseph, the character from the Bible. And they got me like a striped, really colorful coat. So I like to put that on when I bullshit them about their dreams. Dreamweaver. If there's any Gen Zs in the room, you probably don't even know what that song is. But oh my gosh. Okay. So by the way, how do you like my glasses? It wasn't always that way, you guys. When I was like about 5 years old, I got diagnosed with very, very bad vision, like terrible vision, and I had to wear basically what looked like goggles, these big, thick, and they had big brown rims. I always looked like I was excited all the time about everything. And I really hated it. So the moment that I could get contacts, I got contacts, and I wore them for years, But then I noticed that all these people were walking around wearing these really cool glasses. And I thought, I want a pair of cool glasses too, like classy glasses. And then I got a coupon. It was like a sign from God. I got a coupon in the mail from Pearl Vision. I am going. So I made an appointment. And I go to the Pearl Vision, and I'm looking at all the frames, and I can't wait. I'm looking at the classy glasses, and then the optometrist calls me in. And, he says, first, we got to take pictures of your eyes. So take the pictures. And he takes the pictures, and then all of a sudden he rolls back in his chair, and he says, And then he says, ma'am, has anybody ever told you you have high cholesterol? No, that's ridiculous. What? No. Yes. Why? And he says, whoa. Are you on medication for that? I don't know. No, I don't know why. I just want to get classy glasses, okay? So then he says, all right, we'll talk about this later. All right, whatever. And then we go into the vision room to get the vision test, like the actual vision test, and he's very calm, and he's asking me, okay, which one is better, this one? Or that one? Or that one? Or this one? Or one? Or two? Well, I won! See this, that, 5, I don't know, I'm gonna die! Why'd you ask me about my cholesterol? He says, okay, I'm gonna show you the pictures now. So he pulls out the pictures, and he says, you see this one, this picture right here? It's from 2022. These little dots, these are cholesterol deposits back of your eyes. Now you see this one? This is from now. Wow. He says, now I just am saying, maybe the next time you're at your primary care physician, I'm no medical doctor. No, you are not! You're not a medical anything. You're Pearl Vision. So anyway, now comes to the fun part, picking out my frames. And so I go out there and, I got these, And they tell me they're not going to be ready for like 8 weeks. So I walk out of there with nothing but a huge health scare. And so I do what I always do when I need to calm myself down. I eat at Taco Bell. And, usually I get a beef burrito supreme with extra sour cream and onions. But just in case, that doctor was right, I decided to get the lowest cholesterol thing on the menu at Taco Bell. And, you guys aren't going to believe this. Cheesy crunch gorditas. Seriously, put that under your hat. So I got 4 of those. And that made me feel a lot better, less comforted. But I'll tell you one thing. Sorry for anyone at this offense, but fuck Pearl Vision. Coupon or no coupon, I am not going back to that place ever again. All right, thank you. That's my time.